Senators are working on a new amendment for Colorado's Constitution to give sexual abuse survivors a chance to hold their abusers accountable. The amendment would get rid of the statute of limitations for victims to pursue legal action against abusers and institutions.
Here to talk more about the impact of this new amendment is our 9 News legal analyst, Whitney Traylor. Thanks for coming in.
Sure, it's good to be here.
So first, what would it even take to get this on the ballot?
Well, it's going to take a constitutional amendment, which is a very involved process. So first, and this is why the legislature is even talking about it, so they'd first have to pass it by 2/3 in the House and Senate. Then, because right now the law in Colorado, the Constitution says that the legislature cannot pass a law retroactive. And so right now, survivors of child sex abuse, they have to file their case within 6 years after turning 18. And so the legislature is trying to say, okay, we're going to allow you to look back. It's a look back law, essentially. And so the voters would then have to pass it. So this may be on the ballot in 2024. The voters would have to pass it by 55%. Then the legislature could make a law that's compliant with the Constitution, saying you can go retroactive.
And we know that Colorado has actually enacted laws like this previously, but we also know that the courts then turned around and struck those laws down.
That's exactly right. That's why they're trying to look at this, because there was a 2021 law that said, hey, you can file from, if you were a survivor of child sexual abuse, you could file back from 1960 all the way to 2022. So anytime it happened, but the Supreme Court overruled that because our Constitution says the legislature can't pass these retroactive laws. So now the legislature is saying, hey, let's amend the Constitution and just basically add a sentence that says, except in child sexual abuse cases.
So if this law did pass, what would the impact be?
Well, the impact would be significant because there's already been a number of settlements that the Attorney General settled with the Catholic Church. They're paying $6 million into a settlement, and the Boy Scouts had a big settlement. So there's all these other settlements, but the Archdiocese of Denver and other organizations have come out and said, hey, this would essentially bankrupt us. It would prevent current children, current youth from enjoying the programs for these kind of past sins. So they're coming out against it and saying, we're in the midst of settling, we're trying to resolve it ourselves. Something like this would cost millions and maybe even billions if you had all these individual lawsuits. But of course, for the victims, the survivors, they're saying, I'm sure that is not a satisfactory answer, because the reason this is even on the table is because they're realizing the psychological impacts and how it impacts people well into their adult lives and throughout their entire life. So this is hopefully a way to get them some justice and some closure and be able to move on.
I'm curious if any precedent has been set by other states for Colorado to follow for this.
Right. There's a number of states that I think 27 states have enacted these kind of laws, but because it's unique to Colorado's Constitution, that's why some of those other cases may not be precedential in value.
Still a long ways to go to see what happens with this one.
Yeah, because it would be probably 2025 before, because what would happen is first the legislature has to pass it by 2/3, then it would be on the 2024 ballot, so viewers should be looking out for this. Then if it passes by 55% of the voters, in 2025, the legislature can then make this amendment, this law. So
we see how fast they work things through, so it could be a minute.
It could be a while,
Okay.
yes.
All right, Whitney, thank you.